Hello, this is Lisa Lee and welcome to this week's Pick a Card reading. We are looking at the question, what is the missing piece of the puzzle that your guides want to help you solve? So we've got three piles here. Pile number one is the baby deer. Pile number two is the tomato. And pile number three is the duckling. Timestamps are below and I will see you again in a moment. For those of you that chose the baby deer, we have a riddle, which I was not surprised at all to see when I was setting these piles up. So I'm drawn to this eye more than anything else. Let me get a couple more cards here in terms of what is the story that we are looking at in terms of the riddle. What is the story here with the puzzle and the riddle? Enter this story. With the poet. And with the father and the bottom of the deck energy, we have the starborn. I kind of like where this is going right off the bat. So in terms of the puzzle, what's the situation? What's the question? What's even like the confusion here? I think this is a question of like, who am I? Who are you? Like you are in this world, and the starborn sort of indicates something about, oh, and this is interesting. Every time I look at this card, you were born, and it brings apart, like it brings like into the world some sort of like apocalyptic something. Apocalypse in the form of like reveal. You know, kind of like a great reveal. And so with this starborn, what I'm drawn to with the starborn card, and I see this all the time, is I'm pulled right into this array of bullet holes. And this is like some kind of a shatterproof glass. But you're contained and like almost like this is like a within the world, but not of it. Kind of when I look at that egg, that's the situation that I'm feeling profoundly. And so when we look at the poet, the riddle, and the father, I think that there is, at a very basic level, this question of like, who am I? Like, who really am I? So let's take a look and see what your guides want to tell you about. Yeah, let me feel it. Because like the poet, again, it invites a sort of mystery. There's a lot in between the lines. There's, you know, there's the gnosis and the known knowns, like things you understand. And there's like there's a lot, like I'm seeing with a poem, like there's a lot of meaning packed in every stanza, but the meaning is partial. And because the meaning is partial, and by that I mean like an open sentence or an image, like poetry, a stanza can hold a whole story in 4 lines. And so there's something here about what you are holding in this darkness and like what you don't understand, and the riddle to this question of who are you, and sort of like what is this force of nature or this force of the universe that you know that you interact with, that you've been interacting with. Like, what is this energy that watches you? The father is interesting because I'm seeing this as muscle, and that's a crane, like that doesn't even make any sense, but I'll sort of explain. There's something about muscle with the father. Like the alive and the growing, and like the inverse of that image is like a vacancy, a sketch, an unformed, like something blasted in the shape of, or something blasted out. So let's get some more information. Let's look at the energies that are in your environment. I was going to use these, but I don't think I am. Let's take a look and see what other deck. My guys are sort of pulling me into another deck for this. Let's move this over here, this over here, take these. All right, let's go ahead and let's begin and look at this question of the poet. What are the energies that are around this poet energy that can help us understand? Because this poet energy, it's almost, it can speak like a certain kind of vacancy that you feel you may carry. I mean, I'm drawn to the flightiness of this card. And because this speaks of almost like at the place of the void, but like a baby void, the baby void. We recently did a reading in Patreon that will eventually find its way to YouTube that is an encounter with the void and the angel of injustice as the void. And there's a whole lot of like philosophy that came through that, or theology that came through that. But I'm seeing this as being like the power of the void around this notion of identity and your sense of self and your sense of who you are, what you're carrying in the way of like, I know who I am, a known, like this is the truth of who I am. And then everything that like keeps you from feeling like you can in any way be grounded in that. And there's also a way in which a lot of this stuff has not reached the light of day. There hasn't been a full communicating. I see partial language, a partial communicating, a communicating with symbols. But there's something here about getting to know yourself and getting to know yourself through the mirroring of others. And without a sense of yourself, you've never had that proper mirroring. And there's a hard time even really like seeing clearly. And so there's a lot of like grasping at like partial images, partial senses, but not really finding that like, this is what it means to be me, and this is what it means to be expressing as me. Instead, it is this mystery with the riddle here. And so that starborn is an othering, but it's also an othering that you would have come in with in one way or another. And that's kind of a funny thing. How would you have come in with an othering? But an othering that you come into this world with is going to be something that sets you apart very specifically. So I always like sneak in water in the middle of a sentence. Like, I don't know why I do that, but an othering that you're born with is going to look like something like autism or a feature or a characteristic that sets you apart from the masses in a way that is like identifiable as separate. And so there's something about that here with the starborn where, something flip. There's something here about these cards. I'm going to shuffle these back in again. I just want to glance at what they are. Well, we're talking about this othering, this other birth, or this other place, something significantly different. And so that Five of Cups, again, grief and loss. That Six of Cups over connection with family. That great love that you carry with you in terms of the truth of who you are and what you were loved by. And there's like that gnosis, that love that you carry with you, like despite what you have seen from others, you still know who you are in love. And that's right here. Now, with the Three of Cups being about community and the King of Pentacles being about this earth and the Eight of Pentacles being about work, you came in to do some serious work. You're not, this is in by far with this Page of Wands. You know what's funny about this? You guys are saying that you feel kind of half-baked. I guess that, like, I can't, and I don't, this is not an insult. It's like a feeling of like, and I get this sometimes, I know what this is. It's like, feeling like bread that is not baked in the middle. I can't get closer than that perfectly, but you guys are almost saying like you came in a child, and everybody comes in a child, but there's something about your soul or your spirit or the way that you were created or how you were created. It's a funny thing that I'm seeing. I almost see somebody who is born of another world, you know, coming in from another world. And these other worlds, like I see them as having like 800-year lifespans, like long lifespans. So there is like a starborn, starseed sort of quality in this, but you're a young energy. Like you're known as being a young energy in the universe. The universe identifies you as like a young one with this Page of Wands at the bottom of the deck. And so the question of the othering or the starborn, or how do you see yourself correctly in a world where you're not finding that example of yourself in the world? You're not easily able to identify an example of a representative of what feels like you in a certain kind of way. And there's going to be an array of things that you identify with. And there's certainly going to be a number of archetypes that have sort of laid claim to you in one way or another, or you've laid claim to them in one way or another. Archetypes being like ways people can identify you. But when it comes into this figuring out business of the riddle, you know, Five of Cups, there's a grief that you bring with the experience of whatever this other place, and you're very young. And so while you know that you are loved, there's also this feeling of alienation to a certain extent with community, but it's not an alienation that is like negative. Like, I know that sounds odd. It's just, I almost want to put you in a room and do I put this? Like, how do I put this? I feel your energy as being like very distinctly present and non-present, if that makes any sense, with this Three of Cups sort of energy. Because if you look at this angel, it's like they're bringing a message. They bring a message with their lives, and they bring a message with what it is that I guess the bottom line with this is like, you are different. So one of the first things that we want to look at in terms of this puzzle and what this puzzle has to show us is what it means to embrace some of these differences. And in some ways, it's about picking your head up off of the short lifespan vantage point and bringing it into a more infinite, more universe, more, you know, your guys are basically saying that some of it is hard to believe. And I think that that's kind of where we stumble, you know, when we look at your spread here in front of me, is that there is this notion that says like, okay, sure, I can identify myself as like a starseed. I can identify myself as, you know, having like, you know, things that separate me from the rest of the world one way or another. Like that's that whole starseed sort of a thing. But then you sit in a room and you're not really connecting. And then you don't find yourself in the world around you where you're looking. And there is sort of a loneliness in that. But I think that the more important thing here is, what does it mean to allow yourself to be part of a story where you are different, where you are a stranger in a strange land, or traveling through a place that doesn't feel like home, or bringing something from somewhere that is foreign. Because that's sort of, you know, part of this puzzle is for you to really connect with that soul family, in a sense, is to stop looking for them in empty, I'm seeing like, those are empty wells. Stop looking in empty wells to fill the roles of whatever that is that you need in terms of like emotional needs met. So that was like a little bit of a diversion. I wasn't really expecting to look at that way. But so so the poet is, again, we're looking at like this riddle of finding yourself. And I think that there always probably was some big question around like, who am I? I know that there are these like remarkable differences, but there's also ways in which I feel like you have a hard time like really even like getting close to others. Let me see this riddle. I guess we can look at this almost in terms of like relating to yourself. Like, what does it mean to relate to yourself? So like the riddle is like relating to the self. Let's get some more cards. Your guides are helping you manage your input-output right now. They want you to know that. They just want to like throw that in there. With the Seven of Wands, the Justice card, and the King of Pentacles. Okay, so let's do it. Let's get a little bit out there. Because I see this with the Father card and the King of Pentacles, and that's the King of Pentacles coming out again as being something that you have a relationship with, or that you are interfacing with. Now, when we think about the King of Pentacles, we're thinking about the role of the Father, the role of the King of the land, the king over the land. And so that's going to be like rulership, really. And so you have there's something about this justice and this defense that is the part of the bigger story of why you have to cope with a body that doesn't always work in harmony with the world that you're in, a mind that certainly doesn't feel in sync with the world around you. I feel this alien, like, kind of a feeling when I look at that Starborn, but like it's more than that, because I want to be so careful about like dancing into like, I'm a starseed, you know, because even though this is similar to that, like it's not exactly, you know, with the bottom of the deck energy being Two of Swords, again, there's a block about being able to place yourself in the world. Where is my belonging? My belonging feels like it's elsewhere. And so like, that's this tension. That's this riddle, right? And so with the Seven of Wands being about a defense, and with the Justice card, a balancing of the scales and bringing justice, and the King of Pentacles, there's something about you and your presence that very naturally brings some sort of justice in relationship to this father figure. So let me get a little bit more information about the father figure and who this energy is, and like what this really means for you. Because these are really broad sweeps, and that blockage at the bottom of the deck as well. These are really broad sweeps, because it's funny, like I feel like I'm hovering around like where I can feel like the intensity or the gravity or the power of something, but then I go to grab it, I go to like stick my hand in and grab it, and it's like a fish in water. I can't like grip it. And so you may have a hard time with like whatever you're creating, where you're going in life, having a sense of that, your sense of self, like where's the center of gravity, where's the anchoring. There's a block, you know. So let's take a look, because I think that that's the piece of the puzzle that your guides want to reveal, is something related to this block. Let's take a look at that father. So the father card is going to be like, what is your relationship to the world that you are in? Are you in a relationship with the world that you are in where it is just a scary hellscape of like, what is going on? Where do I hide? Or are you in a relationship with the world that you are in where you identify that you have a purpose here, that you're taking up space for a reason, that there's something that you bring with your message? Like there's a contentious relationship with the world that you're in, but there's also a powerful love for it. And so I want to unpack that a little bit, because it's coming up as this father energy in extreme contrast places. Get some water. I should, you know, one of these days I'm going to remember to like check the viewfinder and just make sure that everything is in the frame. It's like I'm hearing like my hands are tied, reaching for some way of like, yeah, like how do you get a grasp on this? How do you get a grip? Because it's almost like, you know, you feel it, it's gnosis, it's true, it's there. But then it's like, I see a pack of black like starling birds, like, you know, it's like, it's really interesting. Okay. Six of Wands is victory. And the Sun. I heard a guide be like, would you believe me if I told you it was, yeah, there's a guide here. And that voice, I'm like doing a little bit of imitation. Like, would you believe me if I told you, like kind of energy. Would you believe me if I told you that the victory over clarity with this life purpose and this life path? You know what's funny? I almost feel like you're here in relationship to this father in one way or another. That the question of who am I, and like where am I from, and like why am I different, and what is my role here, and where is my belonging here? Your belonging is not here, but there's something about you that confronts this father sort of energy. And again, the father is like the established rulership or the established ruler. And so if you're able to sort of energetically like look around at your life and take stock of the themes and the archetypal story structures, does there seem to be an archetypal story structure of a withholding father figure, or withholding like rulership? Because it feels that way. But you bring a level of victory and clarity with the path that you're on, with the path that you take. You're going to have to find balance because you're holding a lot of this energy here with the poet. Let me find out. 1 second. It's just... Every once in a while, my dog will like erupt into like a barking frenzy if there's a certain squirrel or like another cat or something that is walking around. So if we to jump on and off, it's only just to spare your ears. The thing about here, so like withholding father though, like there's even something to the like a relationship with the father, or you know, like or like Holy Father, and so there's something about you having victory over this relationship, or you having victory over this influence, but I can't stop looking at the eyes here. And so like there's something watching you, and I want to find out like what does it mean to have something watching you? Like what is watching you is part of this. Is there something that you have been interacting with? There's some energy that you've always known. There's some mystery around your connection with either like a belief system, another world, or even just a person that is representative of this like father energy. And so let's take a look and see what we've got here. Because what's being worked out in your life is it's a some form or another of the like scapegoated child, or the child that was sacrificed, or the child that was meant to be sacrificed, or the child that was like sent away, or the child that like there's something in terms of like being set apart that has to do with the way that this relationship plays itself out. But whatever that watchful eye is, because when we talk about you finding balance when it comes to this block around who you are and what it means to sort of like operate from that place of I know who I am, and this is who I am, and this is like good, and it's fine, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, because I feel like there's even like a swimminess around trying to, you have a set of things that you know about yourself that you're able to deliver. But I still feel like a swimminess, and in that swimminess of like, I don't know, is like an encounter with the void that's part of solving this riddle. So let's get some cards and get a closer look. Your power, finding your power, keeping your power, holding your power, having your power, all of the aspects of disempowering that go on in order to keep you from knowing who you truly are and what it means to have this judgment about what you're bringing into the world, who you are. There's something here that we're going to unpack. And so with the Six of Wands and the Just 1 second. I guess you broke free. Yeah, I guess you broke free. There was a way in which this energy of the father, it's like such a funny thing, because I see, I'll tell you, I'll describe it. I see a king. I see a king who rules over the land. I see the king that rules over the land that is constantly matriculating like who is worthy and who is unworthy. I see a king who considers obedience to be love. I see a king who never even bothers to communicate, can't even fully communicate. And in whatever they offer, they are withholding. They are withholding love. They are withholding support. They are withholding the necessary things that would make the relationship feel right and feel valid and feel tangible. That's his energy. But this energy is also painfully present, painfully like staring at you, painfully there all the time, painfully like exacting, in whatever their revenge might be, or lack of revenge, because it's not even like they are vengeful. Like, it's a funny energy. It's like, they just don't know love all the way. Like, they just can't see it all the way. And so something about that energy having such a dominance, and your otherness being it's a disruption, and I can't even say it, it's a disruption to that story, that the dominance of that story, because it's like this father energy comes and presents a reality and says, here's the reality, and everybody has to agree with it. And you're like, that reality, like, I not only do I not agree with the reality, but I am an example, I'm the exemplar, I am the key to the riddle, that shows that is like, because I'm seeing the Wizard of Oz, that's not it, that's not the story, that's not the truth. And so being that, is also carrying this energy here. This is funny. I want to get a little bit more clarity on that, because like every time I look at that, I actually feel like a physical pain, right? Like right there. with the Ace of Swords and this Four of, like, these are cards with signifiers, and so I'm just looking at this. Bindings. The truth is that you're bound to this energy. That's the truth. So there's a lot of struggling that goes into what it means to try and like free yourself from this. And there's a reason not to struggle. With the Four of Coins here and the 10 of Wands, this is going to be isolation and like a ton of distractions. And that's going to be also a like a life hurdle to overcome in one way or another. So getting some water. Okay, let's go ahead and look at, so we kind of see what the puzzle reveals in the way of a big picture. But in terms of what it is for you to be in some sort of a situation where there is a binding, let me get information on that. And I need a different deck to get information on that. Let's use this one. Please. What is this binding? Because it's showing up for me in like whatever that represents. I almost hear it like pacemaker. And so I'm hearing something along the line of like this binding has been like a forced, like it has been, yeah, this binding has tried to like force you in the way of like forcing your pace, or it affects your pacing. It's a pacemate, like it paces your heart's, like something like that. All right, let's get more information. So what is this heart thing? Like this Ace of Wands, what is this drive? Like this is so, I don't know if you can see that. It's like a fist. Probably not. I feel like I want like special like magnifying glass to show you this. That's how, I'm gonna hold it up. I hope it's focused, and I want you to pause it, and I want you to zoom in, and I want you to see the way that that person's heart is gripped by some kind of like a dark like claws. But you'll notice that like breaking through those dark claws is a powerful magic. And I'm being shown that this is you. This represents you. And this represents you. And whatever this judgment here is in relationship to this powerful magic, it's reckoning with this relationship with the world that you're in and the rulership that you're under and what it means to confront that with your life. So that's kind of like the Starborn. You know, and so the riddle sort of comes in to say, like, you know, reckoning with that difference, or underneath or underneath that difference is a purpose. You know, that's sort of where we are with this, because that victory here in terms of the clarity you bring with your life story, it's justice. You know, it's really it. It's justice. So let's take a look and see why. I want to take a couple of cards on the Father so that I can see exactly what this energy is watching with you. What is this energy watching? When this energy watches you, what is the whole, what is that watching? What is that watching about? I'm hearing somebody's watching me. It's my anxiety. Yeah. A man holding a coin. That's that Father. That's that, it's the, this energy is very much King of Pentacles sort of energy. So King of Pentacles, the Father, like we're looking at like the forces, you know, like the really broad, we could say like the forces of the patriarchy really broadly, or we can see the forces of the patriarchy that you interact with in the people that you interact with every day. Like you're in it, you know, you're in the mix here. And so the story that you're participating with the cornucopia, the contract, and the attachment, this energy is attached to you. Now, the first thing that we think of when we look at something like that, we're like, oh man, this energy is attached to me. I need to go and, you know, I need a cleansing, like get this thing out of here, like get this thing, rid me of this thing. There's some sort of a contract here that is of great value. You are of great value to this energy in one way or another. So if you kind of look out at the landscape of your life and you're like experiencing an extraordinary amount of opposition to not only your sense of self, your sense of competency, your sense of being capable, your ability to like have a relationship that doesn't turn violent on you in one way or another, or captivity in one way or another, or even if we look at it in terms of like this would have been an energy that would have worked full time to do whatever was possible to keep you unrooted and to also keep you kind of lost and to keep you as isolated as is humanly possible. And a lot of what this would have looked like when you were in your younger years would have been fielding attacks, like actual like attacks on like, you know, being made fun of, bullied, ignored, just being dismissed as you know, being treated as something that people could like use and like dismiss of. Like that kind of speaks to this notion of like an attachment, this notion of like there but not there, withholding. And so that's really interesting, right? Because the riddle here, the question here is like, if you are of such worth and such value to this energy that created you, or that you were created with, or you created into the world to share universal space with, like, if you are of such value with this cornucopia and this contract, you know, that this energy is basically not letting go of you, why then is this energy not valuing you in a way where you're experiencing that feeling of being valued? And so we have this big question of, if I am of such value that you like, that we have to have subjugation, that we have to have some form of like captivity, that we have to have some form of like like a berating, you know, breaking down, but you're of such value, right? So that's the riddle, that's the question, that's the query. Let's get some answers on what it means to like solve the puzzle so that you can kind of walk into this from a different vantage point. So when we look at this father of the world, for better or for worse, it is attached to you. Now, that's actually very true. Like, and I don't, you know, we have to be careful about some of the ways that like patriarchal or monotheistic, you know, indoctrination affects the way that we see spiritual principles overall. Because we're channels. Everyone's a channel. We're constantly channeling. That's kind of the nature of what we are. We are 50%, you know, divine feminine energy, which is community. That's the ancestors. That's their influence. We operate from the consciousness. Like, we swim through. This came through one of the earlier readings, and I say it constantly because it's the best example. We move through consciousness, unaware that like we're moving through the consciousness of the ancestry, in the same way that a whale swims through water. Like, so, you know, we are simultaneously many and one. I mean, like, that is true that in terms of your body is one, but you underneath there's cells, a million cells, you know what I mean? Like, and many. And so this notion of, you know, the interactions that you have with the other worlds and the other dimensions and the way that you express, you know, part of the reason why you might kind of feel lost in space on who you are is just a disconnected relationship with divine feminine aspects of self, which is like, what does it mean to have influences but still be firmly like a self, right? And so when we think about this attachment, I don't want you to think about it in terms of like some gnarly thing that that's like an ancestor that you have to like shake, that is in their shadow. This is more like some kind of like I see it as a cord that connects you to an energy that you are contracted with because there is something of great value in that relationship. And whatever this sort of blindness thing is, what it feels like to you is like something gripping your heart in one way or another in a painful way. And that brightness of being, that I am going to be who I am, the I know my value, I know my worth, even though I can't figure it out, I still know it and I still have it, that is busting through the grip. It's a tension. There's something here that is being created of this tension. So let me see what this attachment is. Let me look a little bit closer. So this energy is watching you because you are in one way or another like contracted to it. Like, I heard the word principalities and then I didn't get the rest of it. Productivity and creation. Stubbornness and inflexibility. Co-creation. Okay, you're in a co-creative relationship with this energy in development. The twins. The poet. Okay. Wow. Foundation and community. So you know what's interesting here? I think we have the Three of Pentacles 3 times. We've got the Three of Pentacles 3 times, but we don't have the Queen of Pentacles yet at all. And then we have the twins. And everything has some grain of truth in it, because we're looking at other dimensions, and when we look at other dimensions, we are looking at a symbolic representation of what is there. And with something like symbolic representation, everybody is going to interpret a different, and like have a different interpretation on whatever that they're picking up on. And so it's funny because your reading has like starseed in it, which again, like I see a representation of that in a lot of people's cards when I look at their spreads. But at the same time, I think I see different stories, and people have different stories with that representation. And the same can be said with like this notion of like twin flames, or whatever twin flames might be, because in some senses, you know, people do like, you know, there are people who pop culture these things, and then there are other people who like certainty these categories. But ultimately, like when you're looking at something like a twin flame dynamic, and that's going to be like Gemini, that's going to be a connection like with another being. You know, we see this in nature. In nature, there are twins. Not everybody is a twin, but in nature, there are examples of people who are born of the same egg, or born of the same womb. And that existence, you know, that has a spiritual reality as well as a physical reality. And so what we're looking at here in terms of Starburn, what we're looking at in terms of like this difference, like you have a relationship with whatever this masculine, and I want to be really careful about masculine energies, because I actually don't mean sex assignment at all. You have a certain kind of relationship with whatever this energy is, where you are its counterpart for better or for worse. And so that poet being about like symbolic language, and that painter being about productivity and creation, the miser stubbornness and inflexibility, and the twins, there's something here with the Two of Cups and finding balance, and justice and finding balance. And the very pronounced absence of a Queen of Coins here. I would suspect, looking at your spread, that you have like, in one way or another, become like hyper independent, and are so independent that this idea of like, you know, for me to say like, oh, like twin flame or counterpart, or a relationship like with this symbolic language, like, like I really feel in your energy like a hard wall. Like, nope, like been there, done that, like absolutely, like it's a hard wall. But part of your purpose, or part of what you truly are, or part of what it means to solve, like the missing piece of this puzzle is there's something here about symbolic language, because the poet is coming out twice in 2 different decks. And both of those decks are like 80 cards or something, you know, like that somebody does the math. You know, whoever is the mathematician out there, the probability of that happening is really slim. And so we have something in terms of like part of your sense of self that you're not able to like firmly get a grip on, has to do with this connection to this other. And it has to do with this connection to this other in another space. And somehow the way to like come to a place of coherence with that is through symbolic language and whatever this creation productivity is. But this miser and the stubbornness, this inflexibility, there's something here that needs to be dealt with the twins, because I guess there's a conflict, and I picked up on it just a second ago when I kind of felt into your energy, and I was like, twins, and it was like you know. And so I think that like with this stubborn inflexibility, with this miser, I think you're fighting this. I think there's a part of you that is kind of like fighting, like fully even experiencing life, fully being in life, fully having life. There's something withdrawn in your energy that I keep on bumping into, and maybe that's that stubbornness and that inflexibility. So let's look at that real quick. And I just glanced up and it was 2020 on the clock, so those numbers might be significant. Visionary and slave and poet again. Listen to me, my friends. One of you is an artist poet, all right? Maybe not one of you, whatever this group is. We've got the poet 3 times. There's something that you're trying to communicate that you can't quite get, and somehow in filling in those blanks or trying to make up the distance between the stanzas, we have something very powerful about like this vision that comes through that unique communication through symbols. And the symbolic communication with the poet, I can't believe we have the poet 3 times. I mean, I know I see this all the time. I mean, if you've followed me for a long time, you know that we have miracles with the cards on a regular basis. But I really want a mathematician to do this for me. We have 3 of Pentacles. So we have King of Pentacles 3 times, and I'm including the man and the coin, with the coin as one of them. And we have the poet in 3 different decks in 3 different places. And so you represent this energy of the poet that is moving into this space with this energy of the man holding the coin, that King of Pentacles energy, this rulership of the world energy. And whatever this stubbornness is, I want to look at that because, you know, giving your willpower to an external authority out of fear of making your own choices is part of that. Compromising your vision to make it more acceptable as part of that. Using your, like, there's something about the power of your words. There's something about the way that you weave words. There's something about words with you that you can also cut someone's throat. As well as set someone free. Like it's that powerful. So like, what is this stubborn, stuck part for you? Like, what is that for you? Because this community and this founder, and also we have that, there was this other energy I felt of community somewhere else in this pile. Maybe it's over here. I don't know. I felt it before, but the community aspect, there's something for you in community. And there's something for you very specifically in partnership. And again, when I feel into your energy and it's like, and I think it's because of these 3 things having had like some sort of shadow hold. And so let's unpack that just a little bit to try and get just a bit. That's kind of like where I want that. This reading, I think we're gonna close on this notion of like unpacking the, like moving this from like a shadow attribute into a light attribute, because your only stuck part, the piece of the puzzle that we have to undo here, is related to this inflexibility with the shadow stuff. So let's take a look really fast. Someone's guide just showed me a flash of someone being like, oh, Lisa Lee. like I just picked up on like a wind of that somewhere. So yep. Listen, this is not such a terrible thing. I feel pretty optimistic about it, because I think that if we can turn this perspective around, there's a power in it. So let me take a look at this. This expresses soul insights in symbolic language with the poet card here. The vulnerability in relationships here with the poet card, and like whatever it is to try and sort of find your way through dark spaces with that with symbols and symbolic meaning. This is your highest gift. This is going to be your superpower at like extraordinary, like magic, El Grande, spectacular. That is here. So when it comes to what it means for you to produce and create of that space, there's a feeling like you have to compromise to make your vision more acceptable to others constantly. And that might be why it's hard to get a sense of your vision. You know, when it comes to having to use symbolic language and having to use symbolic language and having to use symbolic language to communicate something, that's because in some way or another, like there's something about the direct communication that you don't feel like you can. And so you having to communicate around the rosy and around the rosy and around the rosy instead of directly, for one reason or another, has given you a superpower, expertise, magnificence around symbolic language. And so I don't want you to be angry or mad at yourself or in any way hard on yourself for for having to be in this process, because this process is refining one of your finest skills. It's a gift. And so let me take a look at this visionary here with the miser, because you're not meant to compromise your vision to make it more acceptable to other people. And you certainly don't have, you know, like I feel a tension around like, well, I, you know, have to make myself marketable, and, you know, that's not really it. Queen of Swords. I think your guys have been trying for a really long time to make you tougher. And the way that they have tried to make you tougher. Okay, I heard the word softballs. That is like softball, the sports softball. You guys have needed to make you tougher. Like, this is the truth. So with the Ten of Swords here, yep. Okay, like, let's get into this. With your superpower being this indirect language in one way or another, the symbolic language. And I'm just feeling it. Okay, I'm gonna hold this card up, and I'm gonna have this vice grip, this grip over, like, say this is your heart, and your heart's trying to like beat, and every time your heart beats, like rays of sunshine like shine out of it, right? And then this like claw hand is like trying to like clamp down. You are not, you know, you're being too loud, you're beating too loud, you're spilling light everywhere, like shut up, you know what I mean? Like, that's like this tension between these two energies. And I have this feeling with this, you know, for a very long time, the way that your life was set up, or whatever it was, in terms of like, there were a lot of relationships like this where you would say something and someone would immediately misunderstand you, and then they would demand that the misunderstanding version is the real version. And constantly, like time and time again, you had to exert yourself and say like, no, I am this, no, I am that, no, you're not right, like this is me. And that insistence of self, with the Judgment card there, has been a very, very powerful like vehicle for you, and also like a powerful way for you to discover, again, the artist here as being on the bottom of the deck, discover what you're capable of. And so like the passion of the things that you love and the things that you love doing, and what it means to express those things, that insistence. I insist on the self, I insist on being myself, I insist. This is going to be like something that you can't compromise on that vision, and you're not meant to compromise on that vision, and you were meant to be confronted in that vision over and 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 again to build that muscle of insistence. Now with the Ten of Swords, that's hard. And the reason the Ten of Swords is really difficult is because part of that visionary power and that visionary quality and those visionary abilities come through the heart space, with the Queen of Swords being about like a shut down heart space because of this Five of Cups, lack of opportunity in one way or another. It's coming up as lack of opportunity, or lack of acceptance, or lack of belonging, or lack of entry. There's grief in it. And so when it comes to trying to make your vision more acceptable, a lot of that has to do with just feeling like you personally at a core level are unacceptable, and that unacceptable needs to be dressed up, that unacceptable needs to be camouflaged, that unacceptable needs to be presented in a different way. And this has kind of kept you like from being really yourself. But the number of times that you have had to insist on who you are and what it means to be you, and had to redefine yourself against somebody else's accusations, that's going to be like something that sets you free, essentially. Because like this tension here of you compromising and making yourself more acceptable, because at the core you feel some level of not being acceptable because of this othering thing, or this other starseed kind of quality, has kind of moved you away from that source of creative power when it comes to expression, because this is a secret. You know, like your authentic expression or your vision is a secret. What you're able to bring forward is what you think will be acceptable to others, or what you like, and then you think other people will like it, and so now here's what I'm giving you. And so like there's all kinds of stuff that has gone into what it means for you to be taken out of who you are. And so the emotional intelligence that you have gained in terms of having to sustain yourself through this process with the Two of Wands here, of kind of planning your way forward, like pushing your way through doors that are pretty much always closed to you otherwise, has had you in this hermit place. And so this hermit place is almost like where you are right now, you know, in this journey. And so with the light attribute of the visionary being the capacity to envision what is not yet conceivable to others, willingness to proclaim a vision without regard for personal gain. This is the road that you've had to go on. And on that road and in that road, you have discovered a sense of self that can't be contained with that poet card. You can't just be sketched into a box. You can't be described in a paragraph. You're not somebody who shows up as the perfect example of an archetype that everybody knows what they're expecting. You are hard for other people to define. You are hard for yourself to divine. And the fact of the matter is, you're not meant to be pinned down in any particular way. And the way that you have come to your sense of self is in contrast to what people have told you that is not your sense of self. And so it's almost like a thanks to the journey, as hard as that 10 of Swords has been, and it's been vicious, terrible. It's about setting you free. Because there was something about you that has been so bound, so unbelievably bound to compromising your vision to make it more acceptable, when you can't do that and bring into the world what you're meant to bring into the world. And so as somebody who speaks as the poet, who is not even the way that people see you, like I see the way a poem is. And, you know, with a poem, like 4 stanzas, 4 lines each, all disjuncted images, but it relays the sensation and the experience and the wisdom and the revelation of a 200-page book. That's like, you are like, you know, the answer to the riddle is, it's not about finding a firm sense of self or some certain sense of yourself. It's about understanding that you are more spacious, not less. And that the way that you make meaning, you know, of this, you are a poem. You know, you are a poem. You're not a math problem to be solved. You're a poem. You are not a character description, you know, that you have to stay within the lines of in order for people to recognize you. So this visionary here with, you know, the capacity to envision what is not yet conceivable to others also speaks to the fact that you bring in new stuff. You bring in new things, you know, and you're capable of bringing in new things and new stuff. And I think that that's another thing with the poet is a translator of like symbolic language is also translating. It's being able to translate really big, broad things into 3 sentences. It's an alchemist in that way. And so you're not meant to compromise on your vision. And that means not being able to really even compromise on yourself too much. But that 10 of Swords is every time somebody has demanded a compromise. And so with the slave, you know, in the shadow, we have giving your willpower to an external authority out of fear of making your own choices. That comes with lots and lots of disapproval and lots of rejection in one way or another. But when we're able to surrender, like that light attribute, surrendering your power of choice to the divine with complete trust, that's very different, isn't it? That's completely opposite. And when we look at the slave card, we don't often think trust. But that's the missing piece of your puzzle. Because you're about to enter terrains of self with this poet and symbolic language and what it means to be understanding certain things, deciphering certain things, seeing things in new ways. This transformation here, you know, with the hermit that is leading out, not going in. You can see the hermit is leaving that captive space. There's processing to do with this 5 of Cups and this Queen of Cups, the wisdom that comes of that processing. There's communication with the Queen of Swords, but this stubborn inflexibility about being stuck in the life that you're in and the person that you are, and I don't know how to get a hold of any of it, and it's too much. And why can't it just be easy, and why can't I just be easy? You know, that conflict with all of the experiences from the past, that has really steered you away from any sense of what it means to trust. But it's in that trust that you are emancipated from meeting the expectations of others. And so it's not that we are using trust to like, you know, I'm going to trust the world even though it doesn't look like it because I'm just supposed to. No, that's not it. It's working with this notion of finding a way to trust the divine despite what you see of your circumstances with the slave card. Because what you see of your circumstances here with capacity to envision what is not yet conceivable to others, You can envision beyond what is easy to see, what is conceivable to others. And that first means sort of surrendering to where you are, allowing yourself to be where you are so you can see through that space, bring divinity through that space and into the world. Set yourself free in one way or another, but also that trust is an incredibly important part of the alchemy of what it means to remove blockages to your expression. And so we're going to think about what it means to work on finding trust with your creative process and those things that give life to whatever it is that you're creating, that mirrors back to you a sense of self that is divine, because that's going to be the key. That's going to be this passion, this power that moves through you, this decision to step into this story that says, yes, there's something different, there's something othering, there's something distinct, but that is purposeful. And that everything, this experience with this Ten of Swords, everything that you've had that has constantly forced you into this position of feeling unacceptable, and like what you bring into the world and what you have to communicate and the vision that you have is unacceptable. You know, there's been onslaughts that have put you into this inflexible space where you're kind of attached to a story about the way that the world works with you, where in one way or another there's defeat. And so when we're able to take this power back and sort of step into a place that says, you know, the truth of the matter is, yeah, there's a difference. Yes, the visions aren't particularly acceptable to the masses, and it's a symbolic language that is going to be decipherable only to those who can hear that magic, who can see what that has to offer, and who can get something from it. It's a very unique thing with the artist here, and the way that it confronts this King of Pentacles has an emancipating quality, not because you're like fighting the King of Pentacles, but because you're surrendering your power of choice to the divine with complete trust, and in that movement able to step into communicating these visions that give you a stronger sense of self and that propel you forward in what it is that you're creating. And so that's where we're going to leave this. You know, it's not as cut and dry as I want it to be, but I feel like we got a lot. So pile number one, I hope that was helpful, and I will see you again soon. Okay, pile number two, my tomatoes. Let's take a look and see. We've got the vow. I like that. So let's get some cards. Wait, let's move the fawn out of the way. Let's look at what this vow is talking about. So the temple path, blossoming abundance, and the journey with envy on the bottom. So just at a glance, community, the world, action, door to value, and envy. Aren't you something special? You are a little bit, actually. With the bottom of the deck being strategy. And so there's something here, and it's funny because I think a lot of times these readings sort of bleed into each other a little bit. There's something in pile number one about like a contract that is actually striking me, and that's striking that same chord here with the vow in terms of a promise, a commitment, something that with the journey, one of the most spirituality tropes is like, you planned it, you know, like, you know, there's a lot of that, you know, a lot of times, like, one of the easiest ways to sort of dismiss somebody's pain, or one of the easiest ways to even like just dismiss someone generally, is to look at their horrible experiences and say, like, you know what, it's all because you're, you know, here to save, or here to see, or here to do, or here to experience, you know, X, Y, and Z. And by and large, as cheesy and as like paper thin as that might seem, the truth of the matter is the strategy and the journey and the vow, there is something like very powerfully just that, very powerfully that you came here to do something, that there's something about this journey that entails a strategy. Like, I am getting contract vibes with the vow here. Now, the blossoming abundance with the temple path is, I like that. That's kind of like a positive thing. And so when we think about this piece of the puzzle, or like, what is this missing piece of the puzzle that your guides want you to find? And it has to do with this temple path and the blossoming abundance. So I'm looking at the way that the hands are clasped. It's that's interesting because there's like 3 sets of hands here. there's something holding you to this powerfully. And I feel like there's something that you may be fighting with, or may have fought with, in terms of like this very solid, I know that I know that I know that I know that I know I was created for a certain kind of relating or a certain kind of purpose with the vow. There's a promise like that you have, that you were born with a gnosis, with a knowing about. And that will have, that's going to be funny. Like I can see how that's weird for you, because your guides are sort of showing me that this is a feeling, this vow, this knowing, this promise, but that it doesn't hold stories too well. This feeling, when you try to apply it to a story, is usually not the right shape. So how would I explain that? So the way that your guides are sort of showing it to me is, like a good example is, I guess like your experience of, like to love someone generally, like your concept and when your imagined perspective on what a loving encounter might feel like or look like, it's very, very big, it's very, very bold, it's very pronounced. But the lived experience that you see in other people, or even when you try to engage with an activity associated with it, it's like outsized. You have sort of like this outsized sense of something, like a body memory, a feeling, a knowing that is a feeling. It's like an outsized compared to like what you have had access to or experienced. And so the temple path really speaks to a path leading you there to whatever it is that might, like the way that your guide is showing me this is, it's outsized. It's a feeling, it's a knowing, it's outsized. So it's kind of like you have spent a long time, or there's been a lot in your life that has been trying to find the thing that is going to fit, like the size of your heart, for lack of a better way of putting it, or the person that like will be able to hold that. You know, there's a lot there. And that's basically the path that's related to this journey, that's related to this vow. The blossoming abundance here speaks of like, that this is a fruitful journey. But let's look at it closer. Let's get a closer look. Bottom of the deck. Oh, that was from the prompt. Yeah, I pulled those cards earlier. If I shuffled this in the bottom of the deck, is Mother. That might be something significant. Let's go and get some more cards here. I'm drawn to pull from this deck. The Mirror and the Flame. Bottom of the deck is the Venom. You know, it's funny. When I was shuffling, every time I clear the piles, you know, afterwards I shuffle all the decks all over again. You know, I clear them, I shuffle them. And while I was shuffling, I saw that card pop out, and I was just like, I better not see your face again. And there it is. So with the Venom card being about the darkness that seeks to devour, that poisons, and the Mirror and the Flame. But the flame in the mirror, when you put a flame in front of the mirror and it refracts out or it reflects out, it's like I'm seeing something that is like a fire or a flame. Like with this vow, there's some fiery quality to it. And when you place it in front of a mirror, it's hard to locate. And I guess that's like a bad way of putting it, but like basically I'm seeing a candle in front of a mirror, and I'm seeing a dark room, and I'm seeing that reflection of the candle like reflected off other mirrors, and then not being able to find the location of the flame. That's the vision I have that's just sort of what I'm getting in terms of like what this temple is. And so you're holding a very bright, powerful light, and a bright, powerful knowing. And it's not just visible to you, it's visible to other energies and other entities. But in the same way that you can't 100% like you're not consciously understanding it is kind of like a protection. And that flame being dispersed in the way that it is, no matter how many times like the venom has tried to capture you, it's almost like you exist in so many different dimensions, like shape shifting, that like it literally can't. You're constantly being fed a stream of like clean blood. It's a strange vision, but I'm seeing like a blood transfusion. Whenever this energy has tried to poison you, there's something about the like these dancing flames. This is just a really interesting vision. I'm going to get more cards because I don't actually know what I'm seeing 100%. Strategy there under, you know, in the mirror and the flame. Like there's something about a strategy of finding this path that has to do with keeping it hidden while you find it. I don't know. This is cool though. I like this mystery in terms of this riddle. Justice. I do think that there's some aspect of you bring justice. With the Hierophant. The vow, the Hierophant. That's kind of like... I have to get more information on what that venom is, more particularly, but the Ace of Wands. Yeah, let me like lean into these cards for 1 second because this is sort of confusing. Yeah. So you see how she exists in 2 places, and there's like a mirror, and there's a small version and a large version. I don't know if you can, I'm going to hold this card up so that you can kind of see it for yourself, but she's walking around in circles, and there's in the perimeter of the circle is a really small version of herself, but closer and towards the middle, she's large. And I saw that too, like when your guys were showing me the flame, and like you can't, once you put it in front of the mirror, now like I can't find it. What you are, who you are, the size of what you are, and what you're holding in the power. Like there's something about you that is really confusing for people, or like where they can't really quite figure out, like, are you really small or are you really large? And by really small or really large, I guess I'd have to sort of know you to get a better sense of what that is. But like where people either putting you on a pedestal, or you're being knocked down to nothing. And like there's something there with like that being similarly like misleading. And so when we talk about, and that's this journey is like very confusing. There are misleading aspects about it. And so like the mystery here is like around that, like knowing, that feeling, that outsized like capacity for love, that outsized capacity for closeness or something. You know, again, it's not, this is very hard for me to see, I'll be honest. Ooh, sneezies. It's not that hard. But you guys are basically saying, you know, with the Justice card being about like, you know, finding this path, stepping onto this path, forging this path, discovering this path for yourself is justice, and it is bringing justice. You're following your passion. You know, the blossoming abundance is interesting because your guides want to say that like the blossoming of abundance that is being spoken about in this card is like this life-giving substance, which your guides are basically calling like inspiration. When they show it to me, they're calling it inspiration. And so they're saying, you know, that Ace of Wands, I'm seeing like this huge flame. You know, that inspiration is your abundance. Now, the journey of not being able to, like, the confusingness of you, the way that you confuse people, the way that they can't really fully see you, even your own confusion. Because, again, pile number 1 is seeping into this. So you might find something there. That's been the poison, is, like, around this, not, like, this deception around, like, the journey, like, and I guess that deception around the journey is, are you like little nothing or are you big amazing? And like, it's actually neither. So I want to go ahead and take a look at the energies that are involved with you, because the Hierophant there's something very big with you. There's something very powerful in terms of the energy that Because that Hierophant is like an institutional structure. It always strikes me kind of as an egregore. But this energy kind of feels like you're a friend. And that's weird. Let me see. So these energies that are around you, outsized. I keep on, there's something about like outsized, the wrong size, like, because if you see these energies, and I'm picking up both cards accidentally, so there's something to that. The Three of Coins is about building a cathedral. And the Hierophant, again, is like the established institution of either like church or school or government. And you'll notice how he's like so much bigger than these other people that are in this picture. And I think you get treated strange. I mean, like that's sort of like the way that, you know, yeah, you're pacing, the way that you've been paced, the way that you have been treated, what it means for you to build with others. Again, there's something about size and shape. In terms of like, how you're regarded, but also in how you regard yourself. You guys are almost showing me somebody who either feels all the confidence in the world or no confidence whatsoever. The Weaver, the Adventurer, with the Smith underneath it. And so with the Fate, accepting help and guidance. So there's a lot of help around you, and that's the bottom of the deck energy. You have some sort of a vow here in terms of what this journey is, and this abundance in relationship to inspiration, and the Weaver in terms of this path that it is a tremendous responsibility, and it does incur, or you're interfacing with, in one way or another, this venom. Let me get cards on what the venom is. I want to see what that venom is exactly. What are guys want to show us about the venom? Because with the Adventurer, responsibility and expectations over that journey, I feel like it's a big responsibility. There's a lot of strategy that went into this, and there was a lot of strategy that went into, I think, what it meant to hide you in plain sight. But I think that there is this risk, and I felt this with pile number 1, of hiding you in plain sight from yourself. You have this Weaver magic with this rediscovery and this transition. But let's get some, what is this venom? And I'm hearing the song, somebody's watching me, it's my anxiety. I don't know the rest of the song. But there's something to that. Ace of Cups, it's going to be Two of Cups, the Hierophant. Bottom of the deck, we've got the Nine of Cups. There's something about the old structure with the venom. Because the venom comes in around this Ace of Cups, like self-love and the holy love and the glorious divine love. You know, the venom comes in around this Two of Cups, being understood, being seen clearly, being valued. And the venom comes in around this Hierophant card, which it's the Hierophant is on the bottom of the deck here too. And I just touched it, and we've got, again, this is the two of Wands and the Ace of Swords. But see that she's looking in a mirror, and we've got the mirror there. And so for you, the riddle here is about, I gotta say, pile number 1 and pile number 2, we have bleed over, and there's nothing I can do about that. And I think that that's okay, because again, you know, finding this temple path is about discovering, not through the process of mirroring of others being able to see you clearly, of others loving you properly, because there's something about the structure that is the venom. In the absence of an easy path, you have to find your own path. And so like that's sort of the gift of the puzzle here. And the piece of the puzzle is in the absence of a path that is given to you or that you can see clearly. And I'm hearing the word belonging. So in the absence of clear belonging, you're meant to like be pushed out into this adventure of self-discovery that has very little, if nothing, to do with a proper mirroring experience. And I can feel there's a level of frustration with that. But with this vow related to that feeling of like, I know that there's something, I know that there's somewhere, I know that I know that I know that I am carrying something that is leading me on this journey that is of great value. And again, with that inspiration and that Ace of Wands, it's the overthinking taking action that happens in relationship to this venom because of like, well, what if other people, and why do other people, and where am I with other people? You're not being seen clearly. And so with the bottom of the deck energy being about your own desire, even your own desire to be desired, and even a level of like indulgence and fun and how to even desire. Yeah, I mean, I can see why this is kind of like, you know, that venom is something to contend with because it takes the form of love. But it's not love. There's nothing more not love than the institution of a courthouse. There's nothing more not love than the institution of like, I mean, education is cool and great, but like institutions are inherently not love. And with Nine of Cups being about desiring love, and the temple path, you know, is something that you're not given the path, you're not given the easy access, you're not given the road. In fact, it might have been kind of the opposite with the venom there because of the structures that weren't in resonance, I guess, with you in one way or another. But this rediscovery and this weaving of the temple path forward is where there is a blossoming abundance and a lot of inspiration that can go into that process. The overthinking, taking action part, this is where the venom comes in. I don't know, you know, is this structure going to hold me? I don't know what it means to build my own structure. I need the other structure. The other structure doesn't have anything for me. There's no new structure. You know, where am I going to find this path? Like, what do I do without the map? I need a map. Like, that's just overthinking. Because that's keeping you from even getting in touch with like, wait, what do I even want? Do I even want a map? Do you even want a map? And so with this adventure and the responsibility of finding that map from within, based on the things that you are drawn to by way of desire, based on these feeling space that seems to be like a compass, that's going to help you find that flame. Let's see what that is. Because show me what this flame is with the mirror. Show me what the flame is with this mirror. Show me what the flame is with this mirror. The High Priestess. The Ace of Pentacles, and that Two of Cups, with the Seven of Pentacles here. And that bottom of the deck is going to be a Seven of Wands. In defense of love. The institutions that lack all love, the venom in defense of love, is not looking for love where love is not, but finding where love actually is. In defense of love is not looking around, not seeing love, feeling like love is absence and being like F love. No, in defense of love is where is love? Where are you? If you've been left out, I'm going to find you where you are, and if it's not in front of me, I'm going to look for it. And it doesn't have to be found in another person, but it's going to exist, and it's going to be wrangled into my experience. I'm going to insist on it. I'm not going to give up on love, no matter how outsized my love is. And love is an example, because this is a symbol, and it's a symbol of something highly prized. And so when we look at this Two of Cups being about that intimacy, about that relating, about that knowing through another, seeing that mirror of yours in another place. The High Priestess and the Ace of Pentacles, the Ten of Pentacles, wow. You know, it's funny because I was looking at this and I saw, I have dyscalculia, so I don't see numbers in the right order no matter what anyway. But I was looking at the card and I was looking at the image, and I know that I'm never going to know what the number is. I do have to rely heavily on the feeling at that point. But with the Ten of Pentacles here being about the legacy, about what you inherit, what you are holding, like your family line. Like I'm seeing something with like your family line cobbled you together. This is interesting. Okay, I'm going to say it. So your guys are basically showing me, they're saying there wasn't enough love. And they're showing me a dire path, right? So they're showing me a map. Okay, it's the world. It's not really a map. They're showing me a globe. They're showing me a globe, like the picture of the world. And they're having me like zoom in. And they're showing me these different lines on the map as like these different lineages. And they're showing me a small path and like a bottleneck. And they're saying like all of the lineages, they have to go through this very, very small path. And in order for the lineages to survive the small path and get to that other side, they have to be carrying enough love in their line. There has to be enough love in that line. And so when it came to assembling traits, when it came to sort of like wheeling and dealing, you know, love stories to create individuals for purposes, you were very much created with this mind of, in defiance of a lack of love, the presence of love. Which means you would have had to experience some level of lack of. And that's not taking abuse. So let's just be really clear. You know, this is, if anything, it's respect for love, to not let it be desecrated in any way. And so when we have the High Priestess here, which is this high, holy, but even silent and unconscious kind of space, and we have this Ten of Pentacles being about like you're carrying the value and the riches and the wealth of all of the ancestors to bring love into this space. And it's not been easy. It's been a really hard road because you haven't been seen clearly, which is that notion of the Venom card here when we see the deception, and there's the other Two of Cups when we ask what the venom is. But a lot of times, like, your biggest venom, your biggest desire is also going to be your biggest pain. Your biggest potential is also going to be that biggest point of attack. And so where your biggest potential and your biggest, you know, that missing piece of the puzzle, that knowing that you carry, that is a sensation that doesn't have a story that fits it, that is about a certain type of relating and a certain type of seeing and being seen. So you would have had very bad experiences with that, but that's part of the promise of this journey and part of the blossoming abundance of this journey. That overthinking is it's like mud that you can get stuck in related to experiences of the venom. And so when we think about this High Priestess, which is that silent knowing, that feeling, and that Ten of Pentacles, because I saw this as an Ace of Pentacles, because I kept on seeing this person being anointed for a path. If you can look at that picture, somebody is being like, especially like anointed. You know, I see this as being an anointing for a purpose. There's some anointing for a purpose here, even though it operates in silence, even though there's some stealthiness. You know, this hermit having like a reflection of like the version of themselves that is infinite, right? And the version of themselves that is on this path, working very heavily together related to a disclosure of this pathway. And so I think that the main piece of information that your guides are kind of bringing through about this missing piece of the puzzle has to do with the strategy. Let me get it clearer. Let me get it clearer than that. Let me get more cards, because I just saw something that threw me. The strategy of your ancestors to force quit on a lot of the programs that they were running in the past and bring in something very radical in the way of what you contain within you by way of abundance and riches and this inspiration that is going to absolutely lead you to this path. But it is a shitload of work, because you're in a room with all of these candles, and as you move towards the candles, it's about finding the one that is the actual flame in a room of false flames. And you are, you know, in a room of false flames, you are the actual flame. But locating yourself might be different and, you know, or difficult in the absence of a genuine connection, you know. And I think that that's that Two of Cups, because when you make that genuine connection, that's where all the power is. And so that's not dependent on another person, because that Two of Coins, that giving and receiving, Two of Coins, not two coins, Two of Cups, that Two of Cups giving and receiving energy is not really necessarily contingent on another person. It can come from another person, it can come from the deity field, it can come from your guidance, but it can also come from like an encounter with a piece of literature, or an encounter with an idea, or an encounter with anything. Like there's something here about keeping you from true relating with this High Priestess, has been what that venom has been purposed to do. And if it can keep you in your head about that stuff, it can. But very naturally, you carry the legacy of like powerful magic related to love, which is why you're a little bit impossible to defeat. That doesn't mean you haven't felt defeated. It means that nobody's taking you out without a fight. You are not easy to defeat. You don't easily shrink into a role and then play that role. And so since your guide's saying you're a fighting genius, I swear to my husband's guide's like, you're a fighting genius. So it's like, you're a fighting genius, you know, like you aren't just accepting anything. And so even if you may be a wounded warrior right now, the strategy here around getting you on this path and leading you to this path and helping you create this path and the justice that this path has to offer, that you have always been carrying an inner compass, an inner map related to, in terms of trying to find a place where that feeling space fits. This is all around relating. And so like getting you into relationship is part of that, but the relating to self is the biggest part of the puzzle. That's the biggest piece of the puzzle. And so your guides are saying, you know, when you look over your, like the landscape of successful or even failed relationships, and, you know, start to say things like feel any level of failure, your guides are saying, you know, the piece of the puzzle that's most important for you related to the path that you're on and the purpose that you are and what you were created for, is that for you, the relationship with the self is more important than any other relationship, because that compass is reliant on a sense of self that is solid. And so that is going to push you with the Hermit card into levels of isolation. That is going to push you, if there's no place of belonging, into a unique path. And so that missing piece of the puzzle relates to this notion of trust and forgiveness of the world. Pile number one, we got to the end of pile number one, and we got to this point of like, well, what does it mean to trust a world that has only served you venom? Well, in defense of love and being love is not accepting that. And then in that non-acceptance, in your relationship with yourself becoming so powerful in terms of your sense of this feeling that you know and that you are, and it is a gnosis and it has a place. Not being defeated and thinking there's no place for me, but that alliance with love says there's absolutely a place for me. And if I have to make it myself, that's my purpose. And I accept that, because the love that fuels me is a defiant love, is a defiant love that you cannot be snuffed out, because that candle exists everywhere I've ever been and everywhere I will ever go. And good luck trying to find the source of a light that is infinite. And that's how you're meant to feel about people that don't see you clearly. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck trying to find the source of a light that is infinite. I'm going to make this room brighter than the top of the Chrysler building by the time I am done expanding. That's you. You don't have to find the source and protect it and be hyper vigilant with that Seven of Wands, making sure that nobody gets too close, because all the times that you've encountered venom when you were just trying to brighten up a room in defiance of that darkness, you're going to be bright. And that's the presence and the essence of the love that you carry, that doesn't need to fit, to belong, to have permission to exist. You don't have to belong to have permission to exist. You don't have to have the acceptance of others to feel like you have a right to exist. And that doesn't mean that you won't have the acceptance of the others. You know, your guys are saying, you know, you carry something very wild, very, very true, very powerful, that doesn't fit very easily in small boxes. And so this Ace of Fire, these wings, the Fool card, that's starting over. You have an inexhaustible fountain of inspiration here. Now, that's a little bit gobbed up. I see it, right? I see the venom actually, you know, in your reading, the substance of the venom, it feels like tar. It has like a tarry quality to it. And so like this venom, like I see you scraping tar. Ooh, that's gross. There's, well, I mean, these are all like it's all symbolic. So there's something to you scraping tar out of your wounds. That's a really intense image, and I'm trying to figure out why your guys are showing me something so gruesome. But I've heard of this, there's a punishment, like an archaic, horrible, gruesome punishment. It's like tar and feathered, where people would be, have tar thrown on them and then feathers thrown on the tar, and that this was some kind of medieval punishment or some horrible punishment. And I don't want to bring a horrible vision into your mind by expressing that, but your guys are saying you have successfully removed the tar from your wounds. And by successfully removing the tar from your wounds, you stand a chance at bringing a level of illumination with this Temple Path and this Justice and this Weaver card that your ancestors have been waiting for generations. You know, they've been waiting for generations for someone who could do that. Because when I say you remove the tar from your wounds, I'm not talking about like you personally as an individual. I'm talking about everything that you carry within in terms of all the stories, all the history, the underworld the underworld that you participate in, whether you realize it or not. All of that. You know, you have for the family in one way or another through your experiencing and through your making sense of and where you're going and this blossoming abundance of inspiration, been taking the tar out of the wounds and bringing, like, yes, it stings because the air is hitting these wounds for the first time in centuries, but there's an opportunity to heal. And I actually feel like you might feel a physical stinging from what this process has been. And so, and I just heard an audible gasp. Maybe somebody knows what that stinging feeling is. Let's talk about this Nine of Cups with this blossoming abundance and this inspiration. And the flame is what I see in terms of like that flame is that inspiration, and it's all over the place and nobody can grab it. Nobody can like hold it. It can't be like contained. It's all over. Like, you know, once somebody thinks that they found it, it's up in a different place in a different place. Like, this is something very powerful that is being like, that has been gifted to you. And I think it's important for you to, because your guys are saying like there is a kind of a habit of heavy complaining, and with the Fate card here on the bottom of the deck and your guidance that's always there to help, they want you to know that you receive a lot and that you're getting a lot and that you will get so much, that any of the measuring that you find yourself doing when it comes to comparisons and comparing to other people, they want you to disqualify that. Stop thinking about that. Stop ruminating about that. Stop falling into that pit, that trap. Because with the Unspoken here and the High Priestess and the Two of Cups here, like, you will have this opportunity to be seen clearly. It is going to happen for you. You have a lot more impact than you realize, and you're going to have a lot more impact than you're realizing. I get the sense with this pile is giving like the majority of fame is like after you've already like done the journey kind of a thing. Like, they're just art. I'm seeing art that like hits level of acclaim later. And that's not saying that you won't get any credit where credit's due. I just think that there's something about the quality of this path here that has staying power, that is more than you, that is bigger than you. And that speaks to legacy stuff too. I keep on picking up on legacy stuff with you. with that strategy there. I'm picking up heavy legacy stuff. And the Wheel of Fortune. So this change. And so with the Fool card again, I think we had that a second ago. I just don't know where it is. And the Wheel of Fortune and the Fool card and the Wheel of Fortune, that's like double change. This is not only a change, it's a change that you are initiating. It's a leap of faith in a new direction. It's a leap that is fueled by faith itself. And so like you have changing power with this path, with finding this path, with charting this path, with illuminating this dark space. There's something very important with all of that. This overthinking, taking action, this is going to be something that like your guides are saying, you know, look at the whole, like you want to talk about what we've been dealing with. You know, your guides are like, can we just kind of bring you in on like some of what we've been having to handle here, because you are a change maker. And so the change doesn't get made if you are overthinking taking that action, but the change comes with a pivot from being mired in stories of the venom, you know, the experience of like identifying the tar, removing the tar, feeling the sting, the air that hits and the healing that has to happen. That healing comes in with this weaving. I see someone stitching up a wound. And so with this Fool card being about new beginnings and that Nine of Cups and the Fate, you're at this moment in time where the missing piece of the puzzle seems to be that like the old structures were gonna reject you. Like that was gonna happen. The old structures weren't for you. You weren't a person of the old structures. You were a person of the new structures. You were a person of the new path. The old path was always going to be the wrong size. You were always going to be uncomfortable in shoes that were, you know, 4 sizes too small. And so when you understand that this temple path is stepping out of those shoes and feeling for the first time in your life an experience of walking solidly on unrestrained bare feet, your guides are saying first you're going to learn to walk without the restraints. Then you're going to learn to run without the restraints, you know, and everything that is moving you from that place of restraint is this inspiration and the abundance in that inspiration. And so overthinking is even just like overthinking the inspiration. Like, what if I do an inspiring thing, or I am inspired, or what if happens and if I make it, if I don't, like, you know, like all of that, right? Your eyes are saying like, just be the change that comes through you so naturally. Just accept your place in a world that is becoming, in the world that is of the future, and reject your place in a world that was never going to hold you comfortably in the first place. So the missing piece of the puzzle is, no, you don't belong. You don't. Accepting that is taking off those restraints, taking off those shoes that are 2 times too small. And first you learn how to walk without restraints, and then you learn how to run without restraints, and then you're so glad that whatever the hell there was in the universe that kept you from belonging to restraints pushed you out. And so pile number 2, my tomato. You're a creature of the future, and there is a place for you on that road, and it's justice. And you create it, you weave your way that direction as you stop trying to push your way into stuff that you don't even want. And that's really what that Nine of Cups is about. Knowing what you want is something that is yet to come. And so that is going to be a process of discovery, but you're being told to move away from the venom and the way of defending where the flame might be going, or what it's doing, or what part of you, and that there's a well-laid strategy related to this vow that you have taken and the journey that you are on. And there is a lot of guidance and help in this. And so this trust portion, and I kind of encourage you to take a look at pile number 1 if you're called to, because that ended at finding trust. This trust portion is more about trusting the future than the examples that the past had to offer you, because this change is so comprehensive. And so play with that a little bit, because that's what your guides really want to bring through in terms of looking at the past not as a referendum, but as a strategy away from a road of restraints into an experience of emancipation of your own making. That was the bigger picture. So pile number 2, I'm going to leave you there, and I'll see you again soon. Pile number 3, those of you that chose the ducky, let's go ahead and take a look at the fault line. The fault line, so when I started, I sat down, I set up, I went into meditation, I pulled the signifier cards, and I'm not at all surprised. I wasn't at all surprised to see that because we are in a fault line moment, like right now. So the puzzle that your guys want to bring the missing piece to is interestingly like something going on right now. So let's take a look and see what that is. I'll get a couple of cards. Let's see what we have here. The Orphan and the King. At bottom of the deck, energy being their wing. Like as soon as I touched all of these cards together, I almost feel like you've been starting to see a picture on something. Something's starting to reveal itself to you very recently. And the puzzle is actually significant because it's almost like all of the pieces. You guys are saying like this is a fascinating reading for you to kind of wander into at this moment. Like you didn't wander. Like if you're here, there's not really anything particularly random about that, considering how hard I am to find at this point. So with this fault line here, the Orphan and the King, there's something that the puzzle pieces have started to come together for you. You've started to see a picture, and there's a jarring quality to starting to see that picture that is something along the lines of I don't want to say, is it too good to be true? Because it's not anything like that. It's more like it's too big to be true, or this can't be true. Like there's some kind of quality to like seeing the full picture here that has you kind of going like, is this what I think it is? Because so with the ring here being about some form of a covenant is what I pick up on. And the fault line is this breakthrough with this Orphan and this King. And these are two energies. This I can't say that these each pile, I want to say that I do a lot of clearing between piles, and I do, but sometimes a message will just kind of persist, meaning that there's somebody who's in this group that all 3 piles absolutely we can't even question it, it's all applicable, because I am feeling a strain of energy that was present in pile number 1 and present in pile number 2 that I'm picking up on yet again. So for those of you that this is heavily resonating for, or if it gets to the point where it's heavily resonating, there might be something in pile number 1 and pile number 2, because this is a relationship between, right now we've got almost I'm almost seeing that as being the relationship between the divine masculine aspect and the divine feminine aspect is almost showing up for me as the King and the Orphan, but in a shadow. And this fault line here is kind of changing the picture on that a little bit. So I want to get some cards to clarify and help me understand a little bit more. Let's see the energies that are directly involved here around the Orphan and the King. Because again, this is a breaking point between these two energies that had coexisted in a power over power under dynamic that is changing with whatever this breakthrough is. And it was not a good power over power under. It was an abandonment. And so let me understand. Show me a clearer. Wow. Cornucopia. So in pile number 1, we had the cornucopia, and the cornucopia was speaking to, you are of great value to this energy, which is interesting because in the same sentence, like, or not even sentence, but in the same location of you are of great value to this energy is also a abandonment. That does make a lot of sense. So we're going to pull some cards on that, because like walking away from the value that you are holding, and this is a very Four of Swords, rest and rejuvenation. This is a very healing kind of a place. There might be something that there's an emotional investment in this energy of the King that has to be released, related to your own like proper valuing of yourself. So that fault line has to do with like a proper valuing, because you know where we have this disconnect from you are of great value but also abandoned, meaning you weren't properly valued by those holding the value that you are. And so it was like a great beautiful diamond of the most incredible precious pearl value, and the abandonment doesn't devalue the value that is there. The abandonment has nothing to do with that. The abandonment has to do with this King energy. And so walking away from the way that this King has valued you, or the experience of interacting with this King has made you feel to be valued, is coming upon the true value of what you really have and what you really have to offer, and what you always were. And so this rest and rejuvenation, like there's this aspect of again, healing, but healing around a revelation that says, wait a minute, whoever had set my price, I'm priceless. I don't know what this is, right? So that's kind of part of what this covenant is about this breakthrough and this truth, like becoming the power over that it wasn't before. So that's like very big, broad, and philosophical. So I want to zoom in quite a ways, because with fifth chakra Archangel Gabriel here, and there's a message, you know, there's this whole collective. I feel this constantly, that these are like the messengers. Let me take a look. You have a halo. I see a halo on you. I see your halo. Something about that. Okay, let's get some more cards with that rest and rejuvenation. What is this rest and rejuvenation? Okay, you're not going places just yet. And I think that you might feel some level of frustration. So part of this breakthrough, seeing this picture start to come together, having a kind of reaction to it that like, am I experiencing a real phenomenon? Am I having a phenomenon? Like, what is this? You are meant to sort of step into some level of awe. You are meant to like, once you walk away from the false value, once you walk away from valuing things that you thought you valued but you actually don't, like, and step into true value, there's a period of just looking out on the horizon, you know, not hustling to get somewhere, not having to, you know, churn it out real fast. Like, there's something to savoring this. Now, with the Emperor and the Hierophant, you know, again, like these energies are, the energies of these reading, the King is this Emperor energy. So it's like coming out twice. And that Hierophant is the structure that the Emperor established. And again, we're getting such a broad view. But in terms of like whatever frustration you might have about your pacing or where you find yourself, or, you know, gridlock in terms of like milestones that you feel like you may have missed, or like they happened but they didn't hold the reward that you had expected. You know, there's sort of a lot there. You know, more particularly that has to do with the sloughing off of whatever that false picture was. But stepping into that new picture kind of calls you to allow yourself to believe in 1,000 possible things before breakfast. Like, there is that aspect to it. And so let me go ahead and get a couple more cards, because I want to see this King. Like, where is this King energy with you right now? Wonder. You know, it's funny because I picked up on, I just think you're cool. I'm looking at your energy right now, and like if you could think about this Emperor and the Hierophant as being, this is an energy that takes dominion over the world and creates all of these structures to put people in service of it in one way or another. Those structures all have a purpose that is its purpose, that is his purpose, that is the Emperor's purpose. Those structures carry the Emperor's purpose and impose the Emperor's purpose on those who have to move through those structures. And so the funny thing that I'm seeing when I'm like, oh, you're cool, this is interesting, is you're the thing in that structure that is growing in a way that this Emperor energy hasn't seen anything like it. And so, like, whatever the spiritual infrastructure that speaks to this dynamic and this breakthrough and this bigger picture, you've kind of caught the eye of a energy that, you know, whether it's like big structures, big picture, or something smaller, like, you know, an Emperor energy who everything has to fit in a box in order for them to make sense of it, and otherwise it's a freak, you know what I mean? Like, or something like that. Like, you have, in this process of breakthrough, with whatever that breakthrough is and whatever that spiritual experience is, you've caught the eye of like this creator of power structure. You know, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're not the cog in the wheel that is operating as the machine is planned, but you're growing something. And this energy is like, what are you growing? Like, and so there's something cool happening here now. With this king again, and the king is speaking of this Emperor, and the king is also like, when I feel into the king's energy in regarding you, I very powerfully feel like a perplexed, like it's like perplexing, but it's like perplexing awe, right? So that's like positive. I like that a lot. But with you being sort of not on, like with this rest and rejuvenation, like there's something to be feeling like you're being benched, or you were benched, or feeling like you should be having like a great deal more progress somehow. Like that's coming up here, and I'm not even really sure why, because I'm not seeing it in terms of this breakthrough. But I think that your guys are saying, you know, this breakthrough is about the breakthrough. And so when it comes to this cornucopia, this value, that fifth chakra, Archangel Gabriel, that communication, like what you have to, like there's something about the heart. Wow, look at that. So yeah, man holding a heart right underneath. So this space here, I gotta look at that, because I'm seeing, this is like for me, the card is doing things, you know, so I'll kind of explain what's happening here. This is like a face. I'm seeing this as like a face that is emerging, a picture within, a form within the soul that is changing its shape somehow within your heart space. And like what's coming through that process is almost like a new structure, because I'm seeing it as being communicated like a brand new, what is that? Because this looks like an ocean. I'm seeing waves, like the deep ocean, like something about your voice is a deep ocean, and the depths of the ocean, bringing the depths through this form or this picture. That from the depths come a new form, and with that new form, something is being communicated, something of the heart space. So that's why you're resting, rejuvenating, because there's a metamorphosis going on right here, and yeah, before I pull more cards, you know, where the king is, with the 6 of coins and the 10 of swords. It's like wands. You know, I like this Dungeons and Dragons deck because the minor arcana are like, they're not signified, so it's like you actually really do have to feel into it. It's shapeshifty, and like this, I'm confused about this, because it's like there's a generosity being offered you, and I don't want to call it a truce, because that's like the wrong language. But the way that you are showing up, your guys are saying like you're having a personal breakthrough right now, and that personal breakthrough is leading to a type of expression and a metamorphosis that, again, like something is growing here that creates this road forward with the Lover's card. And so you caught this attention, you know, and when I look at this, I see like seal of approval. But this is menacing, terrorizing energy right here in this card. You're crystal clear, you know, you're comfortable. You are tapping into like the divine aspects of the universe. Like your sort of truth is not to be fucked with in any way, shape, or form. And all of these energies around you, like you're in color and they're in shadows. And so despite like the terrorizing kind of quality of the environment that this energy is in, this strength of character that you have brought time and time again has caused a level of generosity here that is lifting you out of this shadowy place. You see, this monster is like picking you up and like lifting you out. Like this is a journey here. This is part of walking away. It's like walking away from this environment and being brought, like curried into this new space in one way or another. And so even if it feels kind of crunchy around like, what do I do? How am I organizing this day? Like, what is this day doing with me? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because this page of wands is in reverse. And so with this rest and rejuvenation, I think the missing piece of the puzzle is the breakthrough is here. You're starting to see this bigger picture, but you're not meant to, and you're not even being given leave to prematurely interrupt this growth process that's happening with this rest, rejuvenation, this kind of forced pause, or even this forced plateau a little bit. And I think that's sort of like, I think you have been questioning your guides about your progress. I think you have been questioning your guides about what you're starting to see in terms of a bigger picture, but also like where you find yourself in terms of where the old picture kind of like left you a little bit unfinished. But I don't really understand what this absence it means and where it's leading. So I want to, you know, it's like, it's your walking away. You've already walked away with whatever this resolve was. The generosity that is being granted you as a result of your character here. And again, like I'm not able to fully see the circumstance, but that generosity has a lot to do with value revealed. Also, a false value placed and then value revealed. And so what it means to bring your value into the world, again, there might be a little bit of a pause. There might be a little bit of a tempering here, but you're meant to be okay with that because there, like I said, something is growing. In this space of resolve, there is something that is moving you forward, and it might not feel like good. It might feel like a monster, you know, is moving you forward, but you're being brought into a brighter space. But you are abandoning this king somehow. Like the abandonment is being flipped. I don't know if it's abandonment. It's like something like with that metamorphosis, you can change with me. It's almost like you when you walk away, when you're able to sort of remove that emotional investment in either false values or a false sense of your own value, being falsely valued, moving into this new space. Yeah, the Eight of Cups. There's something here that has to be let go, released with the Five of Wands conflict. Let's take a look. What is that? So there's some sort of tension or conflict here around this king energy, and what has to be Eight of Cups emotionally. Take your emotional investment. So there is a call to that a little bit, and I need to get more details to better see this, because there's some sort of covenant here. That covenant that exists there with the ring has existed through many, many lifetimes, many universes even. There's an intergalactic quality to this entanglement. So how are you going to walk away from that? That doesn't seem like something you would Ten of Wands being meaning to walk away from. There's a change of plan here. There's some sort of change of plan. Huh. There's a conflict here. There's a change of plan. There's been some interference. Eight of Wands, interference for sure. Ten of Wands, that's going to be a breaking point, breakthrough. There's a fight here. Yeah, for sure. Okay, let me get more cards on that. Let me open this up a little bit. Because what it means for you to find your value, there's some sort of a conflict, there's some sort of a tussle, there's some sort of that Five of Wands kind of conflict. You know, I see the wolves. What wolf are you going to feed? There's a, I think it's a native, indigenous American story, a Native American story. I don't know which tribe particularly. I could look it up. It's two wolves are inside the person. One is the wolf of good and one is the wolf of evil. And whichever wolf is fighting, you know, whichever wolf wins is going to be the one that you feed. So is it going to be the good wolf or the bad wolf? Well, it depends on which wolf you feed. That's the one that's going to win within you. And so this conflict that we're in this moment with this breakthrough and this rest and rejuvenation before we plan our way forward in any way, shape, or form, your angels are kind of speaking to something that is growing, speaking to attention that you've been given, even speaking to a change in like a generosity. But despite that, you know, in the same picture, in the same puzzle, we have a conflict here around discovering what the value is. It's a fight because there's a lot of investment in what you had previously valued that you're being told to withdraw that investment from. Hold on one second. Every once in a while, I just have to let the dog bark. So with the with this conflict, actually, it's interesting because I got him. It's almost like my guides redirected me as I was waiting for my dog to stop barking at the neighbor. And what you have to walk away from, the emotional investment that you have to walk away from. I almost got this feeling it was like the emotional investment that we have in being right, the emotional investment we have in even vengeance, like, you know, because the emotional investment we have in the conflict, the emotional investment that we have in the comparisons, the emotional investment that we have in all of the battles that we won and we lost and we carry with us. Because we don't want to let those battles go, because we need to solve this problem. We need to finish this question. We need to make sure that, you know, whether it's won or it's lost, it's not forgotten, because there's a part of you that almost died in that in one way or another. You know, it's like carrying all of that with you, all of this interference here with the Eight of Wands. You're meant to sort of like reach these heights, and everything below you sort of gunning for your attention that comes from this place where, like, at one point or another, you were somehow invested in emotionally. Your guide's saying, like, what it means to remove that emotional investment, what it means to walk away from that, is to not go back there over and over and over again, trying to make what was never fair, to not go back to that place and re-engage with a fight. Because this isn't about a fight. That Ten of Wands, this breaking point, isn't about a conflict. This breaking point is not brought on by a conflict. It's not moving forward in conflict, you know, in terms of that breakthrough. And so the fact that there had been a conflict ongoing means that the emotional investment and the place that we are walking away from with that emotional investment is conflict itself, and having this conflict. Let's see what that means. Because in relationship to this notion of a covenant, I'm going to get some cards on this notion of a covenant, and then I'm going to look at that Ten of Wands, that wounded warrior who carries their battles on their back. Heavy. Because the generosity that is coming towards you isn't necessarily coming from the king. Like, I keep on feeling this energy is like regarding you and what is growing here as something that it won't crush. But at the same time, it's still something funny about this interaction. That it's not completely clean. And so the temptation to feed the wolf that is fighting indicates that if you feed the fight, it will defeat you. But if you stop feeding the fight and you begin to feed something else that's walking away from and walking in a new direction, that's the winning strategy. And so I felt a card flip. Oh, there it is. With that Four of Wands here, completion and union. That's the opposite of an ongoing fight, and keeping on bringing up the fight and working in the fight and standing in the fight. And there might be a conflict that you have to move through. But the energy of the fight, there's something about that you're not meant to bring into this messaging, that you're not meant to bring into whatever this growth process is, and that your guys are not going to let you bring any of this into the world unless you put the sword down, which is the rest in the rejuvenation. It's almost like what your guys are saying with this missing piece is the missing piece of the puzzle is not like hustle or work harder. It's like slow down. You can't create into this space with all the battles on your back. It's time to put that stuff down. It's time to put the warrior like in you, like to healing and teach that warrior how to play. Because the Seven of Cups here in terms of confusion and interference and chaos, and I can't see my way forward. I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm doing. That's going to be where there's no motivation because you don't know what's worth motivating for. You don't know what is of value. And without a sense of what is of value, you're looking back at all the things that you used to value that no longer satisfy or that were withheld or that were broken. And you're not moving towards things you want. You're assessing the things that you wanted that were lost in one way or another and fighting about that stuff. And so when your guides are saying, you know, let go of all of that, it has nothing to do with where you're going, because it's a heavy weight of carrying those battles. Like that, the missing piece of the puzzle that they want to reveal a picture for you is that you've had this breakthrough. There is a covenant here. There is a new direction to take. The rest in rejuvenation is about kind of purging this false value system that has you constantly looking back at a picture where you feel like there isn't anything for you, or what was for you like hurt you, and now you can't find a new thing to be for, and like it's kind of like a lack of a compass almost. And so putting down that fight, you know, is also putting down this confusion. And so let's get some more cards on what that means. You gotta fight for your right to party. So I'm hearing the Beastie Boys, you have to fight for your right to party. And your guys are saying like, that's the wrong, that's what you're walking away from. You don't have to fight for your right to take up space. You don't have to fight for your right to have fun. You don't have to fight for your right to love openly, you know. And with the Seven of Pentacles being about work, toil. Let's keep going. More cards. Yeah, the Seven of Pentacles, it keeps on striking me as being torn in different directions. Having too many directions that you're trying to go at once. Actually, the funny thing about this too many directions that you want to go at once is that you're frozen. You're not going in any direction. You're kind of stuck in one spot with an eye on a bunch of different directions, but no real, again, that compass. With that Seven of Cups, there's options, but there's also confusion with those options, so there might as well not be options. And so when we look at, this is what I knew that was going to come out. I can feel it. Oh, these are a lot. We're getting a lot of information. Okay. With this, oh, shoot. You know, like, this is one of these things where, now I got to sit here and feel this, because when people put Roman numerals on my cards, and I have dyscalculia, like, we all have to sit and wait for me to then feel it with my actual hands in order to get a sense of, it's like temperance. Okay, so with balance and peace coming in here, there's something that needs to be tamed, and there's something that needs to be tamed within you. And it's again, it's about being undervalued, being told to put your values where your values aren't, like this whole orphaning here, this alienation. And there's something that you're holding to that has never been enough, that is not enough in one way or another. But at the same time, there's love here for it. And so when we think about putting down the fight with yourself around what it means to acknowledge that there is some love for the person who would give you scraps, you know, or there is some love, or there is love that is right alongside the violence, or there is love that is in the story of all of the rejection. Like, this is sort of a strange thing that I'm seeing here with this card, because this is the Lover's card. And it's a Lover's card that strikes me as being remarkably off balance in terms of who the two lovers are. They're not the same size. And that says something to me about maturation. And since the Lover's card is a lot about leaving the plateau, leaving the comfort zone to do more maturing, to stretch, and that leaving is something that you do because you're called to do it by the force of desire. And so this shows me like a desire to hold on to something that you love. And so like when we're able to say, you know, form a level of acceptance about something that is an attachment, that is challenging, but it's somehow like there's a lack of balance, there's a lack of a match here with the again, the Four of Swords. We're talking about a healing process that has to happen related to that and moving you into new territory, because you've got the Six of Swords and the Chariot here, which is again, everything about the movement that is happening for you is being facilitated by your guides, and you're meant to rest through this process of metamorphosis and transformation. You will arrive, and the missing piece of the puzzle for you is that what you're seeing as delays, what you're seeing as I'm doing and it's just not breaking through. Your guides are saying the breakthroughs are happening. You've had these breakthroughs. You're working your way through what it means to make meaning and make sense of these things and heal. And that's going to bring you a whole new value system and a whole new valuation of yourself and a whole new sense of self. This old sense of self needs healing, not because it's an interesting revelation, because it's almost like you've cut off, or you, like I see somebody who's like cut off a limb, like amputated an arm or a leg, trying to deal with the fact that you love something that was not enough, or that hurt you, or that was off balance, or that you're fighting with the reality of whatever that situation was. And you're fighting with the reality of the presence of love alongside something that is now requiring you to heal. Because if we deny the presence of love, then we're not able to properly tell the story. And so I think that that's kind of an important part of what we're looking at in terms of this healing is, you know, a proper retelling of the story isn't a reporting of all the offenses. It's going back into that place and saying, yes, you know, this situation, for better or for worse, changed me through breaking me, and yet the presence of love has something to tell me about this. And it's a presence of love that I held in that space, and it's the presence I held for myself that got me out of that space, and it's the presence of love that has something to tell me about its own complexity, that it won't be shoved into small boxes, and that it has to live alongside all the other things, you know? And so there's something about like discontinuing like perfection around love that is part of this healing process and this journey away from where you've been stuck in this orphaned place. And so even though the king in some ways puts you here, that crack in the wall is almost like a door. I'm seeing a door and I'm not seeing it here. You know, it's almost like a door, and you're meant to go through it. But this going through this door is not battling your way through. It's not knocking everything down. It's not like trying to take the things that you have with you, you know, not the battle regalia, like clanging as you run through the halls. This is rest and rejuvenation and trust and allowing for that inspiration to be what moves you forward, and trusting that inspiration will move you forward, because you're finished fighting, and you have to be finished fighting. You have to be finished with the wars and the battles and the wars and the battles and the wars and the battles. And that's what you're being called into, because the orphan has to survive. The orphan has to just survive and survive and survive. And the orphan doesn't get an opportunity to grow up, because the only thing the orphan is doing is surviving. Now, what makes that more difficult than it should be is that when the orphan is finally finished surviving, the orphan then has to survive survival. Meaning everything that you had to do to survive now has to be reckoned with. And all of those ideals that you held in order to motivate yourself to do the surviving have to be dealt with, because those ideals are never going to be met. The ideals that we have in front of us that fuel our surviving are always grand, big ideals. I'm surviving for the power of that grand love story. I'm surviving for the power of that record-breaking album that I'm going to make. I'm surviving, to take my place, as the fastest marathon runner. That's what gets us like out of the chains. But when we've survived survival and we're standing at this new landscape and looking out at the future that's before us and actually having to reckon with reality, the love story falls short. The job is exhausting. The reality is humdrum. The adventure is over. What's going on, right? I was surviving for all of these things, and now I just have to lower my expectations, right? And so that's kind of part of what this rest and rejuvenation part of the journey is about, because no, it's not just about lowering those expectations. The fact of the matter is that those ideals were motivating, and those ideals, we value them and we thank them for getting you out of those horrible situations. But the actual substance of the goodness that is going to give you growth, the actual substance of the goodness that is going to offer you maturation, the actual substance of the goodness that is going to support your striving and your success and your thriving comes from encounters with the actual, not the ideal. And those encounters with the actual are encounters where the presence of love is next to the presence of fear, and the presence of love is next to the presence of disorientation. And we have to be able to not just get swallowed by disorientation and discount love's availability in any given situation. Like, we have to kind of work with alchemy from a whole new place, because surviving is not about alchemizing. Surviving is instant response. You're living in the presence. You're like a dog, like in the present moment you are living, and there is, squirrel, you know what I mean? You're making those moves. But survival is a kind of silence. It's a kind of stillness. And that's kind of where you are. And that's not an empty stillness. That is a full stillness. And so that Six of Swords, where your guides are moving you into a new place with this Chariot, that is going to take a lot of effort to get you there to some extent, but it's their effort, and let them take that effort, because this is their time, to pull you. You're being, like, if you can see this Six of Swords, she's sleeping, she's napping. This is her guide doing the hard work of it. What is required, though, is that you trust that you are being taken to a place where that rest and rejuvenation will be thriving, where that assessing and that introspection and that looking back over and that stillness, and it's a full stillness, leads to your way out of confusion into a place of clarity with this Queen of Swords. There's something that needs to be digested there's something that you have to, like, I'm seeing like a false sense of self, and then coming into a solid, true sense of self, and you have to eat the false sense of self. It has to be eaten and digested. It has to be I know that sounds kind of strange, and it's going to make some sense to people, but what that digestion, what looking at that false sense of self, looking at those stories, looking at that improper valuing, and then bringing in new values, bringing in that new sense of things. You have to be with that girl that you were, And you have to be with that man that you were, and you have to be with that person that you were. I don't know why I'm seeing this come through in so many different expressions, but you have to be that person that you were. You have to go to that person that you were, and you have to accept that that person that you were made some incredible decisions based on love that did not lead to incredible places yet. Because that journey needs to be digested. You gotta have to do that. That's that rest and rejuvenation. And that is this time for you. And so the missing piece of the puzzle, you know, in terms of this picture, is that you're being assisted, you're being helped, you're being guided. You can put down the fight of having to defend yourself. You can put down the feeling that you have to constantly be surviving. And that's calling you into a new way of being in the world. And so with this Three of Swords, heartbreak here, you know, what it means to be with the versions of yourself that are in unfinished places because they were surviving for you, helping that survival take place. And these are versions of yourself that got tossed aside, you know, for the purpose of surviving for ideals that aren't going to nourish you unless you're able to go back and get that version of yourself and say, hey, come along with, we have to digest this story. I have to forgive this situation. I can't call you somebody that you're not. You were this person. This was what was happening. Like, it's different now, but I love you. Because I think very powerfully, and I feel very powerful experiences of maybe not loving that person. Maybe reporting from, you know, I report that this person was hurt in all these ways, and I report that this is how this person reacted, but not being able to bring your love into that place with yourself and saying, yeah, we were really in love. Yeah, we made that decision based on a tremendous amount of passion that we had towards this cause or that cause. And yeah, we got eaten by it like a tiger in one way or another. But the story is a lot fuller for all of that love. The story is a lot fuller for that curiosity. The story is a lot fuller for the nature of that conflict that wasn't just good guys, bad guys, and, you know, victim, perpetrator. There's a lot of nuance there that you're meant to digest with this process of rest and rejuvenation, which isn't empty, but it's not, but it's, you know, the piece of the puzzle that's missing is that this is a part of your journey, this pause. This is a part of your journey, this rest. This is a part of your journey, this repacing. And the only thing that you're really meant to do in the way of making this easier on yourself is removing the interference of an argument with a past that is already long gone. An argument with injustice that you keep on bringing back to life because you're looking for it everywhere in order to validate its existence, because you know that it's there, because you lived it and you need it to be different. And so that when you remove yourself from that fight and you kind of step into, I'm going to rest, the ideals are gone, I'm going to assess, I'm going to introspect, I'm going to experience, I'm going to look at all of the alchemy, I'm going to re-alchemize, I'm going to work with the different essences that were in the process of moving through these stories in a way that incorporates all of them instead of having these partial pictures based on hero or loser. You know what I mean? Like, we're trying to take that structure off of your experience and allow it to breathe and allow it to inform a new form that's much more powerfully reflective of who you are and who you're meant to be in the world. And that is not somebody who is abandoned, which means you're not going to abandon yourself and the parts of yourself that thought a different way or saw a different way or was a different way. Instead, you're going to love that part of yourself by bringing it to life and expressing it from a place of maturity, from a place of distance, and from a place of, yes, we were there, but then we broke through. And in that breakthrough, the light shone. And of that light, a new picture revealed itself. And of that new picture, something began to grow. And of that growth, awe returned. And of that growth, wonder returned. And of that growth, creativity returned. And of that creativity, there is a cornucopia of abundance. And so that's what you're working with right now. And so the picture is imperfect. And the missing piece of the puzzle is it's supposed to be. The ideals that you survived for, you needed those ideals. we thank them. But they were never going to be anything other than the Wizard of Oz at the end of the yellow brick road that is just a little man behind a curtain. But we're not going to invalidate the entire journey, because when we got to the end of the yellow brick road, it was disappointing. No, we're going to validate the journey even more by way of looking at the outcome in perspective. There's a story to be told about that yellow brick road, and it is a valuable story. And if you're not willing to tell that story because the outcome disappointed you, you've missed the cornucopia. You're not going to do that. You're gonna go through this healing process. You're gonna allow for that stillness. You're gonna allow for that what feels like a deafening silence, but it's really the presence of so much unspoken. And you're gonna begin to speak. And it's gonna be imperfect, and you're gonna let it be imperfect. Because your guides love you, and they are bringing you, they are carrying you on this journey. And you have the attention of giants, whether you realize it or not. In the spiritual realms, you do. You wouldn't be here otherwise. That's the truth. And so we have the forgotten, the missed opportunities, the fear of failure. That's a poison. You know, when we think about this distance and this journey, and we think about this whole pond, think about this as a giant ice pond. There's where we're coming from when we were surviving. And then we broke through and we crossed, and we're in this new terrain over here. And we have to move into areas of uncertainty and places we haven't been before, and versions of the self that need to heal and form in order to be solid enough for us to feel solid for real. You know, and that means that what we're not going to do, we're not going to stand at the ledge of this. This is I see this like a gorge. This is looking like I wish I had the right word for it. I love when my guides show me like things from nature, because I'm like, I don't know what that is. You know, but it's like this looks like a gorge or a canyon, right? You're not going to stand at the end of the canyon lamenting the distance to the bottom, you know, and because you're much more familiar with that passage than you are with the unfamiliar passage in front of you. You're not going to stay with the unfamiliar passage that is a story about the depth, you know, of the wall that you just climbed. Because you have somewhere to go. And so that forgotten, that missed opportunities, that fear of failure that is experienced as the outcome of the orphan's journey that didn't lead to the mom or the dad or the home that was expected, but an entirely different experience. You didn't miss the opportunity to go home, and you didn't miss the opportunity to meet a real wizard. You met the lions and the tigers and the bears. Oh my. There were some flying monkeys. There's a couple of witches along the way. There might even be a new perspective about the witches that you didn't know you had, that's changing the whole picture of the whole story to begin with. You might have discovered magic that you had with you all along that you didn't know until the end was everything that you were looking for. We're not going to stand at the forgotten, we're not going to stand at the missed opportunities and lament when we have a journey of wealth, a cornucopia of value that is ours to discover when we stop looking at the failed icons that led us out of the cave, that inspired the surviving. But we're going to experience the real value of the journey that we just went on and what it has to offer, in allowing for this process of rest, rejuvenation, awe and wonder, and healing. And there's work to it. Like, there's a lot of work to it, because you have to admit you sort of loved something about this false love. I don't want to call it false love, because it was love with many different colors and shapes and variations and shadows and light. It's more than just some pure substance that has to be perfect. And so with this fear of failure that we have here, the missing piece of the puzzle is you didn't fail. The missing piece of the puzzle is you didn't even get lost. The missing piece of the puzzle is you're sitting on a gold mine. The missing piece of the puzzle is it was never the icons to begin with. That you survived for a completely different reason. And that what you're carrying in the way of that journey, that is the cornucopia. And if you can't tussle with the parts of yourself that had that journey, because it's too painful to look at things that weren't as you expected or the losses that were incurred, then you're going to miss this opportunity to see yourself clearly, to know yourself, to value yourself, and to have that experience of union from within. And it's funny because this reading, pile number 1, really spoke to that coming into a place of seeing yourself clearly, valuing yourself honestly, having an experience of belonging, being known and loved and properly valued, seen and appreciated and understood. That is here in this process. Pile number 3, duckies. That bottom of the deck energy is a Ace of Cups. That's the love right there. That's the divine love. And so pile number 3, with the bottom of the deck energy being the diviner, divine timing and evaluation. This puzzle is showing you that there's something to be said for the divine timing in all of this. The hermit, if you feel like you're just kind of like hermiting away your life, you're not. You're not. There's something to this timing. There's something to trust with this timing. There's something to trust with this process of reevaluation, reintegration, digestion. There's something to celebrate in it. The universe has a covenant with you to bring you through this process into a sense of self that will set you free. That is something very powerful about what you have to say. So, pile number 3, my ducks, my duckies. I hope that was helpful. This is a pile that's going through it, and I know that, but I'm very proud of you, and I'm very impressed with you, and I'm really excited about the discoveries that you're about to make about the value of the road that you were just on. So pile number 3, let's leave it there, and I will see you again soon.